Hey y'all, it's Ellen.
And I'm Sam.
Last year, we started journeys of self-discovery and healing. And now, we're bringing you along.
This is Woo New, the podcast.
Welcome back to Woo New. This is our mini-series on Reiki, and we have some really amazing interviews that we want to share with you, starting with Syd Yang, who is
the brains, the brilliance, the inspiration.
the brains behind the Blue Jaguar Healing Arts. She is a Reiki master and teacher. She's the author of a book called Release, a Bulimia Story, and she has a project under the Blue Jaguar Healing Arts called Release Bulimia, where she works with people with eating disorders, go beyond recovery towards liberation. And we're really excited to have had the opportunity to chat with Syd because she has played a pretty vital role in both of our relationship to Reiki, both on the receiving end and also on the student end as well.
Yeah, this interview is actually what inspired me to start studying Reiki. Syd has been such an incredible teacher and mentor, and her process of working with students and teaching them in more of an apprenticeship style has really changed my relationship with Reiki completely. And it's completely blown doors open that I don't know if I would have been able to access if I had tried doing this with somebody else. She's such an incredible healer, too.
Yeah, she really was kind of the first step in my journey last year where through a 20-minute Reiki session, she was able to identify something in my midsection that needed to be broken through. She described it as this armor. And her style of Reiki also was something I wasn't used to because she's not what you imagine Reiki to be, this hands-on, on the table kind of session. It was very much us facing each other. Like I felt her going through me in a weird way, and I don't even know how to describe it, but I felt her energy kind of coming through me. But it was really amazing what she was able to detect. And then I had a Reiki session after that with her as well that helped me sort of work through some more things. But she's just a really amazing person, and her story is fascinating. Her book is a must read, and we're really excited to be sharing this with you.
Yeah, we can't wait to share this interview. I laughed, I cried, it was so good.
All right, so here is Syd. So maybe you can start by just like talking about how you even found Reiki in your life.
So Reiki is one of the modalities that I work with. So I work with a number of different energy therapies. I'm an intuitive coach and an intuitive counselor. And I do a lot of spiritual counseling with folks and kind of like weaving all of those pieces together to meet people where they're at. Like, where are you in your life transitions, in life conflict, and becoming, right? Mm-hmm. So what are the tools that I can bring to the table to support you, to guide you, to facilitate change and transformation? Mm-hmm. And really about moving people towards a sense of liberation in their life. Mm-hmm. And how do we access that on a day-to-day basis of being free? Yeah. And Reiki was something, as I was doing this work, and I've done pieces of it, I think it's been forming for the last couple of decades in different ways and shapes and forms. I'm also an artist, so it weaves through my artwork as well. But this idea of healing and being a facilitator, being a coach, those are all pieces that just are a part of who I am. And it was how I was building relationships with people, with spaces, with organizations. And over the years, a number of people are like, you should learn Reiki. And I was like, I don't think so. No.
So you personally had not tried it? Like you
I had.
Oh,
so
okay.
the first time I experienced Reiki was a good friend of mine from college had started studying it. And I think I was in grad school at the time. So I was maybe in my early 20s. Mm-hmm. And she did Reiki on me, and all I did, I cried the entire session. The minute she put her hands on me to the minute she took her hands off, I was bawling. Wow. And I was like, what did you do? I don't know what this is, but what did you do? And it just cleared so much out. And after that, I was like, okay, that shit's real, but it's not, I'm not a practitioner, right? That's for all these other people to do. And then, jump to after 15 years later, everyone's like, you should study this. And everyone at that point in my life that I knew were these like super feminine white women in like flowy skirts and wearing lots of flowers and like flowers in their hair. And I was like, I'm not that. Nor do I want to be that.
Right.
And that doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And it just kept coming up. And I'm like, nope, 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 nope.
What was it about you that made them feel like this should be your path?
I have no idea. I have no idea. And it was just friends. And it wasn't other Reiki practitioners. It was friends of mine who had Reiki sessions. They're like, you should be learning this. You should be doing this. Maybe you should do this. And so it wasn't like there were other teachers coming to me telling me that they saw this in me, right?
Mm-hmm. But clearly your friends were seeing something.
They were seeing something.
Yeah.
And I spent many therapy sessions being like, I am not going to be a white woman in a flowery skirt. That is just not my path. And I remember
thank God for that.
It's just not going to happen. And I remember my therapist saying, there's no chance of that ever being you because it's just not who you are. And I was like, okay, that's comforting. But what was interesting in all of this is years later, I was taking this, it was some like channeling class. And I was like, oh, let me just take this class. And I walked in and I totally forget what the class was about. But I remember I met this woman who was a very feminine white woman, but not in a flowy skirt. Right? And straight and not somebody that I automatically would be like, oh, we're like in community together. But when we saw each other, there was this knowing, and I was just like, I need to know you.
Wow.
And she had that same like, oh, I need to know you. And so we just kind of like that like almost magnetism of just like became friends. And I just like sat next to her like all weekend. And I don't remember the class, but I remember her. Wow. I think I had lunch with her like a couple weeks later, and she's like, I'm supposed to teach you Reiki.
Like she felt it was a calling.
Yeah. She's like, I just know. She's like, I don't teach anymore, but I know I'm supposed to teach you. And I was like, huh.
Oh my God.
That's interesting.
My whole body just got
And I was like, this is weird, but I can't deny there's something that brought us together, right? And I was like, okay, how do we do this? And she's like, well, we're just going to study over time. And I ended up apprenticing with her for 2 years and studying with her in this one-on-one like mentorship, really, apprenticeship. And that's how I did all my levels. That's how I did my master level. And to this day, she's still my Reiki master. She's still the one I go to. She's still my teacher who like guides me as I do a lot of the energy work that I do. And when I hit up against these places, like I don't understand what's happening, whether it's in my personal life or with clients, she's still that teacher for me. Wow. And it blew all of my ideas or notions or preconceptions of like who people are, right, based on how we look on the outside, out the window. And I think that was really powerful because what I've learned in all of this is that our spiritual teachers, whether it's a Reiki teacher or any other type of teacher, they find us. And it's not always who we think our teachers need to be, right? She's not who I would have picked for myself, but she's exactly who I needed.
Wow, that's really beautiful.
I know.
Side note, do you believe in past life regression?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah, absolutely.
So we've been having a lot of conversations that have been circling around this idea, and this other woman that we had actually been working with on hypnotherapy and we did an interview with, she was telling us her idea, not her specifically, but the idea that souls travel together through multiple lives. And right. She specifically used that example. So I am like not even shocked that you mentioned it because she was like, when you meet someone and immediately it's like you've known them forever or your souls have a connection and you don't know why. Right. She was like, that's why. It was so cool. Yeah. That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can you explain so you went through all the different levels with her, right?
Yeah.
How did she start to train you? Was it hands-on? Was it what? Was there a handbook? Was it what was that training like?
It's funny. I didn't even realize there were Reiki manuals or Reiki handbooks until maybe a year and a half into my study with her. And she's like, "Oh yeah, there's these books. I should give you a copy." And by the way. But what happened, it was really just spending time, and a lot of it was talking and inquiry. It was a space I was able to bring a lot of my questions, and so we were able to talk about the nitty gritty of doing energy work. And at the time, I had just started, offering energy work and some other like coaching work through, and had started Blue Jaguar Healing Arts. And so I was starting to do then those other modalities that I had been trained in. Again, because I'm like, I'm not going to do Reiki, I'll do the other ones. And it was just having a space to land. And we met up regularly, and it was just a space where I could show up and be like, okay, this is what's happening. I don't understand this. This is really cool. Let me talk through this. And she could share her experiences in practice and in her relationship to Reiki. And it was about, how do I build that relationship to this energy and to this form of practice? And so there was hands-on work. I worked on her, she worked on me. Like there was that back and forth, and the space to be an inquiry about it, which I think was so helpful.
Yeah.
And to be like, things could happen, I could go back and be in practice, come back, and it's like this workshopping, like troubleshooting or like exploration, experimentation space.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was storytelling and story sharing.
Wow.
And exploring past lives. Like all the things that come up, right? And really, really powerful spaces that helped me. Like it was not just like a learning or training period for me. It was also a profound healing period for me. So like I was going through profound transformation in this relationship, as well as being trained and having a mentor and having a teacher guide me.
That was going to be my question. Like, it sounds like you are also going through, in a sense, like therapy with her.
Yeah, right.
With her.
Probably.
Yeah, well, and before we even began, I was telling Syd my second attunement story, and she was explaining to me how like it's like the attunement was like making room for you, and making room for the, I guess. You explain it way better than I do. Like, making room for something. Like,
this is how I feel every time someone explains something to me. I'm like, okay, so I'm butchering this, but Ellen, do you understand what I'm saying?
But yeah, it's like it just causes like emotional release to happen. But I felt like it was like I was learning a lot about myself in the process of learning about this life force energy. Which is really fascinating.
Yeah, and I think for me, having that space to train with somebody for 2 years also helped me become really accountable as a practitioner, as a healer, as a teacher, because I started teaching a couple years after that. And so bringing that's a different type of ethics, I think, to the practice, and a different type of rigor. Reiki as a form and as a practice is rooted in Japanese culture and in Japanese practice and esoteric Buddhism. And within that structure is a very ritualized, ceremonial type of approach to practice, right? And so each thing we do is important and is sacred and is meaningful. And so how do we show up for that? And so how do I show up to be in relationship to this practice that has this history and this lineage that is very formal, that is very ceremonial? Right? Can I bring that type of, can I honor it in that way? Right? And so when I think about the form of Reiki, like I need to honor that form. And especially as somebody, I'm not Japanese, but I have Asian heritage, and also being East Asian, like how do I hold that same reverence to cultural practices and cultural relationships, right? That are so interwoven in a lot of Asian cultures too. And so for me, that's where I think a lot of it resonated, and I didn't realize that piece before I started practicing and being in relationship with it.
Do you feel like it actually kind of like connected you back to that heritage?
Yeah, I think it connected me back to a lot more. I was already practicing Buddhism and more of had been studying like Zen Buddhism and practicing, which is also Japanese. Again, not Japanese. But those are the pieces that called me, and I think it really helped me then from there go deeper into my study of Buddhism and practice and the Dharma there, because there's such an intersection of that. And the more I've practiced and studied with Reiki, I've understood also that it's also so connected to Eastern modalities of healing, so like acupuncture and the meridians and Qigong and Tai Chi and like all these things that are moving energy, right? And Reiki is just another form of chi. It's, in a way, we can call it like God chi, or like, you know, like that universal divine chi, right? And so how are we connecting to that life force in the same ways that we connect to our own life force, right? It's not one or the other, but they work in tandem and in cooperation with each other. And so being in that type of relationship for me is very different than, oh, I can heal you, or oh, I can fix you.
Yeah.
It's about, this is part of a spiritual practice, a part of a spiritual way of being in the world, with myself, with others, with the earth. And what are the tools that create that ceremony, or that create that structure for me, that helps me enter into that sacred? And Reiki happens to be one of those things, which is like so beyond my expectation of what I thought it was.
Yeah, that's actually a perfect segue, because for when somebody who doesn't know what Reiki is, how do you explain it to them?
I like to think of it actually as two different things. So I just talked about the form, right? So which is a very Japanese, a very ceremonial, very like esoteric Buddhist form. But then there's also the energy of Reiki, which is universal life force, which Ellen, I think you mentioned a moment ago, right? So it's like this universal life force, which is the energy that is in everything and is everything. And if we think about it as that, that's everywhere, at all times, in all things. So everything, in a way, is connected to Reiki. Everything is that universal life force energy, right? And that is not unique to Japan. That is not unique to me. That is not unique to the Western practice of Reiki. That exists in all forms. And so if we think about Reiki as those two different things, one is the energy, one is the form, then I practice connecting to that energy within this form. And different people and different traditions and different cultures and different modalities still can connect to that energy, but in different forms. And so how that gets translated depends on cultural relationships, cultural understandings, and how we're trained.
It sounds like, and we were kind of digging into this a little earlier with Susanna, who's your sister, who you taught actually, right?
Yeah.
But the idea that the form is also very personal and individual to each Reiki master or Reiki practitioner, or, you know.
Yeah.
And that I find really fascinating. You know, we've been in this like debate about, you know, how you measure and test Reiki, you know, when it looks so different depending on who you're sitting with and who's working on you. And even between you and Susanna is like different practices, and you know, it's so different.
Totally different.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I'm curious, like, can you also describe the way your personal form of Reiki practice is?
Yeah, how it flows through me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a really important piece. Like, so the energy of Reiki, or the flow of Reiki, if we want to call it that, is really about, it's all about balance. It's about bringing things back into balance. And that's the natural state of the world. That's the natural state of things, is to lean towards balance. When things are out of balance, that's when things get wonky, right? Literally. Wow, okay, that was literal. But yeah, so it's, anyways, going back to balance. But Reiki's about balance. And so each of us, as we're attuned, whatever level you're in, you're attuned to carry, to channel, to receive, to transmit that energy, that universal life force energy. But then as a channel, you carry your own stories, your own histories, your own experiences, your own ways of being, and being in relationship to the world. So because you're becoming that channel, the Reiki is going to flow in a unique way through you, right? And that is that relationship, right? So what it shows up for me is not that it's different energy, it's because that moment when the Reiki and me connect as a practitioner, like, that creates something new. And so when it comes through you, it creates something new. When it comes through my sister, it creates something new. When it comes through you, it creates something new. And so that's part of like why my teacher taught me in that way, and why I actually teach in an apprentice form as well, and I teach one-on-one, is that how do we get that space to really like create spaciousness to figure out what is that relationship. So for me, I started out doing some sessions on the tables, which is traditional, doing table work, hands-on work, when people are more passive, lying on a table. And over time, I realized it's just not, that doesn't, I mean, it's great. It's really effective. It's just not how the Reiki was flowing through me, or not how it wanted to fully be expressed. And where I've come to it is I now do work, what I call more engaged inquiry or engaged energy work. And so we'll be sitting together, facing each other, and we do some breath work. I can do a lot of energy work without, and very rarely do I do hands-on work now, but it's about keeping the other person engaged, and we're working through what's moving, what's rebalancing, what's shifting, what's releasing. And a big part of my practice is teaching people the tools within themselves to do that work on their own. And so being able to be fully conscious and engaged with that, with the practice, and being like, oh, I can feel this moving, or I can feel this releasing. Oh, that's how you did that. Oh, this breath or this form of breath was able to create that opening. And so that people walk out of a session being like a lot more empowered, a lot more determined, or self-determination to be able, an agency to be able to access their own healing, but also to trust their own bodies. And I think the table work is really powerful, and this is just another form that works for me.
So I've sat with you and you've worked on me before, and the one thing that really struck me about, and this is, I've only had, I think that was like my second ever experience with Reiki, was I left with homework. I left with things to do and things to work on that, was active, and I had to, it wasn't just like I just feel better now, but there were things that, I think one of the homework pieces was you need to go home and freaking dance your ass off in your house, at least once or twice a week, and just get into your body in that sort of like organic and very like free spirited sort of way. And I hadn't done that in years, and so even that, like going home with that homework assignment, for lack of a better word, was really helpful, because it just, it put what I learned sitting with you into practice, and I was able to like, get further with it, and it wasn't just like a momentary release. It's super powerful.
And I this work for me, like the way that Reiki has changed or impacted my life, is that it's changed how I live on a day-to-day basis, and how I'm in relationship to my own body, and how I'm in relationship to my own pain and my wounds and my trauma. And that can't be replaced, that's invaluable. Thank you. Exactly. It's invaluable. And the reason I do this work is not to provide moments of peace for people, but it's to provide a space for each of us to learn how to be free. And that happens on a day-to-day basis, on a moment-to-moment basis, as we're in our body, right? So what is that relationship to this? And our bodies hold trauma. Our bodies hold oppression. Our bodies hold stories that limit us or hold us back or wound us on a day-to-day basis. And so how can we lean into those spaces that are really, really tender and difficult and hard to be with, and still want to move forward, and still be like, I'm okay, I can do this, or I can find joy in this moment, or I can find a sense of relief in this moment. And as a Reiki teacher and a Reiki practitioner and an energy healer, I can't be with people every single moment of the day. But you are with your body, and you are with yourself every single moment of the day. So what are the ways that we can learn together how to be a little bit softer, or be a little bit more gentle with our own bodies and our own wounds and our own journeys, so that ultimately that spills out into our relationships, into our communities, into our the spaces that we inhabit. And that is transformation. It's just, transformation is not a moment of feeling better. I mean, those are great, but that's not what transformation is. Transformation is really a whole different way of being with our bodies and being with our trauma. And that's a big reason why I do this work, is that we each become more equipped and more resourced to live this life, right?
You're literally changing the world every individual by individual, It's like whatever you're allowing them to sort of have a better relationship or closer, more sensitive relationship with their own energy, so that it's not just this like one and done sort of thing. It's not just so isolated too, because obviously like we all share energy and we all affect each other.
Right.
Which I find that's if anything at all, this is what makes Reiki so powerful.
Yeah.
So when you are teaching, I have two questions actually. How did you know that your connection with Reiki was different? And how did you find the modality that you use? And also, when you teach, is there a specific way that you teach, or does it always vary?
The way that I teach is I do teach a variety of different ways of sharing Reiki and using Reiki. So I do teach table work, but I also teach what I do, which is the engaged inquiry type of energy work. And I also create space, especially with the master students that I work with, of helping to kind of like nurture and pull out what is that unique form of how the Reiki is flowing through them, right? And so helping them be in inquiry, be in experimentation, be in practice. So giving them lots of different options so they have the experience and the practice, but then the space to allow that to emerge for themselves. And I think for me, how that emerged, it was over time. And it was really about listening intuitively to the Reiki and listening to the ways how my body felt and how the energy moved through me. And the way that I sense it is the Reiki is very energetic and also very physical. So I feel physical sensations and physical movement and physical temperatures. So it's a very physical and emotional experience for me. And so over time, it's really just listening to that and like moving, like, okay, this is a yes, move more this, do more like this, lean in this way, and like kind of allowing the Reiki to guide me. And over time, it was just guiding in this way of like, keep doing this, keep doing this. And it started that I would be doing sessions where we would have more of the one-on-one sitting, and then we do table work. And then over time, it was like, oh, we spent the entire time here. The table doesn't even need to be used. And so after a while, it was like, wait, why is that happening? And then I went through a lot of self-doubt. I'm like, am I a bad person or a bad practitioner? Am I doing this wrong? Like, why am I like avoiding the table? Like, and so there's a lot of those questions that I had to sit with and like grapple with, and my self-doubt. And that's when it was really helpful to have a teacher who was with me along the way, and having that reaffirming like elder who could be like, no, you're listening to the Reiki, trust the Reiki. It's not, it has to be a certain way, right? And so that was also confronting in me. One of my stories is that I have to be human in a certain way, or I have to be a woman in a certain way, or I have to be a person who's Taiwanese in a certain way, right?
Boxy, little like,
and that was so much trauma in my own body. I'm like, well, I don't do it that way, or like that doesn't feel correct for me, or that doesn't feel comfortable. And so having a teacher being like, no, the Reiki is expansive, it's permissive, it's a creative, generative energy. And so in a way, it's almost like, yes, there are forms, but there's no rules. Right. And so we get to build that relationship and see what it is, and let that be organic, and let that be creative, and let that generate what it needs to be. And the more I could give space for the Reiki to be what it needed to be, was also giving myself more space for who I needed to be in the world, and how I could show up more for my purpose and my work and my business. And not have to be like, well, I'm supposed to do it this way because everybody says I have to do it this way. And really get out of that story that was so limiting for me, physically as well as intellectually and professionally.
There's that, is it called the 1,000 Veils of the Soul or something like that? That concept of like, you know, when you're born, you're like at your purest form, and then as you grow up through parents and society and whatnot, you have all these veils that you kind of take on, right? All these identities and all these things that you should be or need to be or whatever. But what an like super rad lesson to receive through Reiki, to actually embrace your individuality.
So incredible.
Yeah,
you know.
And it's permission, right? Permission to not have to be something that's not
true.
true or comfortable, or I'd have to contort in order to conform to fit, right? And I feel like for me, so much of my life had been like that, as you know, as somebody who is queer, who is mixed race, who identifies as non-binary and genderqueer. There were so many ways that I felt I had to conform to fit all these other ideas of what society, of what my family, of what culture wanted me to be. And I think also within the wellness world and within the healing world, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of loud voices who are promoting and saying this is the way to be, or like don't do it that way, or only be positive, or only do it this way, it's just about light. And that these ways of practicing or being in spiritual relationship to the divine and to that kind of that life force energy, to say it's only one way to me is so limiting. And it's also really damaging because we're telling people they're not good enough. And even though we're trying to be like, oh, everybody be so positive, but we're actually creating shame and generating spaces where people feel less than. And that to me is not okay. And a big part of that is because of my history with eating disorders and recovering from a pretty severe eating disorder, which was mostly bulimia and binge eating over a span of almost 30 years, that anything that creates more body shame, I'm just going to say no to, because it's not okay. Because creating that type of pain and suffering, we already have so much of that in the world. Why do we need more? And why do we need to co-create that within so-called wellness spaces? And so I'm really adamant that the work that we do, especially within wellness spaces, within healing spaces, within energy healing spaces, is shame-free. And the way to be outside of shame and guilt and be not creating or generating more of that is to be in a place of permission and a space of expansiveness and a space of allowing and permission of like, who are we each as individuals, and can we have that space to fully express, but also to experiment with, does this fit for me? I don't know. Let me try it on. Oh, whoops, that doesn't fit. But that one piece of it did, so I'm going to take that, right? And so what is that? And so I approach my healing work with clients in that way, and it's a big reason why the primary focus of my work is working with folks who are recovering from eating disorders, and working specifically and primarily with folks who identify as queer, trans, or non-binary, and a lot with folks who are folks of color, because those are voices and bodies that have been so marginalized in the mainstream, but also marginalized within the space of recovery for eating disorders, and in the space for healing around body image and body autonomy. So it's really important for me to hold a space for that. That is fat positive, that is body positive, that is sex positive, that is about being able to show up in our wholeness and in our contradictions, and to be like, I don't make sense, and that's okay. And so how do we do that healing work? How do we do that rebalancing work? How do we do that transformative like recovery, right? And it's not just recovery in the sense of getting rid of an addiction. It's recovery in the sense of reclaiming our power and remembering who we are, and remembering that we are as expansive as that universal life force energy, that we are that energy. We are that, all that is, in everything that we are, in our breath, in our movement, in our body, in our experience, in the size that we are, in the shape that we are, in the spaces we are when we're like the most wounded, right? We are that whole and that huge, but we forget that, right? Because of trauma, because of living in this world, because of oppression, because of colonialism, because of all of these things, capitalism, right? All of those things,
all the isms,
right? That like tear us down and disconnect us both from ourselves, but also from that source of infinite power and infinite truth. And that to me is that universal life force energy. And so in this moment, in this time, in this place, as somebody who was raised in Los Angeles in the West, it looks and sounds like Reiki, but it's so much bigger than that.
Yeah.
Right? And so how do we connect people to that and reconnect people to that? Because when you connect to that, then I have more permission to connect to that. And when you're connected, we all have more permission. And that creates this, it's almost like this feeling of like a collective heart, right? That is just beating and like creating these like waves out of not just healing, but it's like this like transformation, like into wholeness, into completeness, into a sense of being okay, right? And I know like sometimes okay that is like can be a trite word, but I mean like it's really okay. Like everything is possible, right? And how many of us get to live from that place every single day, right? So few of us ever do, at least every single moment, right? There might be a moment, right? I don't live in that place every single day because I'm human. I don't, right? I still have like layers of trauma and wounds that I'm working through. But I have moments.
Here you go. No, I know. It's
right. And so yeah, so that's my work. And it happens to look specifically right now like working with eating disorders and working with folks around body image and our relationships to food. And you know, one of my taglines in the work that I do in one of the projects is called Release Bulimia, and the tagline is Beyond Recovery Towards Liberation. That is because recovery isn't the goal. It's how do we get free, right? Recovery is a step to that, and we can still experience freedom and liberation and that sense of wholeness, even if we're still in the midst of an eating disorder, even if we're still in the midst of an addiction. So I say that because oftentimes we have this story that in addiction, like somehow we have more value if we're recovered, right? Or if, I am so many years sober, or I haven't thrown up again, or I don't restrict my food anymore. And there's like, yeah, you did it. Yeah. But what about those who are still suffering? And what about those people who are like, I don't know how to survive if I'm not on a diet. Or I don't know how to survive if I'm not throwing up. Or I don't know how to survive if I'm not drinking, right? We have to see those people in those moments as totally whole in the same way that we see folks who are recovered. Otherwise, there's no sense. Who's free then? Right. Nobody's free. Right. Because if...
It's another label.
Yeah, if you're not free, I'm not free. Yeah. Because we're connected. We're part of that collective whole, right? The universal life force. It's all that is, right? Yeah. And so that's my work, is really finding the space for healing, for transformation, for storytelling. That's why I wrote my book, which is my memoir.
By the way, is so amazing.
Thank you.
I cannot put it down. It's so good. It's really incredible. You're a beautiful writer.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm getting it after Sam.
Yeah.
It's my fault. I've been sitting on it for so long, but I love it so much.
Thank you. And that's you know, our stories will set us free. And that's part of it, is regardless of where we are in our story, regardless of what our relationship is to the systems of oppression that hold us and keep us disconnected, regardless of what our relationship is to our parents and to our families of birth, regardless of all of that, regardless of how we talk to ourselves every morning when we look into the mirror, when we wake up, or when we're about to fall asleep, none of us need to live in shame. And so how do we create spaces or healing spaces or wellness spaces that first and foremost hold each of us as sacred, and hold our stories and our wounds and our transformation and our healing as completely sacred beings? And those are the spaces that I want to be in. Those are the spaces that I want to be creating and co-creating with other healers. And I'm doing that. And so like this is what keeps me moving forward, because I'm like, I need that for me to survive. And it was having found spaces like that in healers who held that understanding, that were my anchors and my lifelines over the years. And if I hadn't found them, I don't think I would be sitting here. Actually, I know for a fact I would not be sitting here. And I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be doing this work. I wouldn't be on this earth. And to be able to be here and be able to offer back and offer spaces that can hold others in similar ways and in ways that hold their complexities, right? In all possibilities, like that's such a gift. So that's why I do what I do, I guess.
That's an amazing answer.
And it's, you know, it's, I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
Because to me, this is not just about survival. It's sacred work.
Well, I feel like all of us have been gifted with these experiences that lead us to doing what we're doing. I mean, including us with daughters and you and your practice. And, you know, one of the things that keeps on arising for me, because as we're talking about our mission and wanting to help women connect back to themselves, connect within, hear their intuitions, have a relationship with themselves, those kinds of things, I find myself realizing, because I was in this space before we started this journey, that I was completely numb to the fact that I needed to heal, period. You know, like I had no idea. I had no idea. And I'm curious, like, how do you reach people who just may be so blind because of all the responsibilities and noise and things in their lives that are keeping them from, like, true healing and you know, like, how do you reach those people?
I think, you know, this piece around knowing that we need healing or that we need to reach out for healing, it's such an interesting question, I think, because so many of us are at different points on our lives and our journeys and access, and culturally for some of us we were raised that you don't ask for help, right? And I know that as somebody who's Taiwanese and coming from a Chinese community, you don't ask for help because you don't shame the family. When I first started seeing, the first therapist I saw, or psychiatrist, my family's like, we don't do therapy. So there's a lot of barriers, I think, so culturally, socially, that keep us from even knowing that we have a divine right to ask for help and to be supported by others, right? So there's that piece. And I think the other piece is, how do I reach people, is we all have our own awakening moments, right? And those moments when we're just surviving is a perfectly valid place to be, because life is stupid hard. And if we're just surviving and don't have the capacity or the emotional space to say, hey, this needs to change, that's okay. But there will be a moment, right? There's always that moment, whether it's in that quiet moment when we're by ourselves and it's just like you're watching a movie and somebody says something and you're like, oh, and there's just a little opening or a little softening and a little like, and maybe it closes down right away. But the more that those little moments happen, right, then we start to see a little bit bigger, a little bit wider. And I think some of that is, a big part is our people around us sharing stories and sharing their truth, whether it's through entertainment or through the movies, right, or through a book or through our friends just talking more openly, right? That's how we connect with people. And I think there are, you know, for the work that I do, one of my criteria is that you need to be ready to do this work if we're going to work together, because we're going to go deep, and this is hard, messy, emotional work that if you're not ready for it, you're going to run away, and that's okay, right? That doesn't mean anybody's less valid. A lot of who I encounter are people who are like, okay, this is not working for me anymore, these like behaviors or this system or this way of being, and something needs to change. And that's really where people show up with me, and that's the work that we get to do in that kind of like, you know, messy moment. But where I see transformation happening with folks who aren't necessarily in that place or may never get to that place is really in how we're sharing each other's stories. And so the ways, Ellen, you were talking about, like, what was that opening, right, in your Reiki 2 attunement, you know, and like, what was that opening for you in like something that you read in my book, and like, how do you talk about that, and how do you share that, because that's that vulnerable like nugget, that's that that essence of truth of who you are that people can see. And it's like, that's how we touch people, is like being in that moment, you're being whole. You're being that large, expansive possibility. And that is when people are like, oh, I want that. Or, oh, I've never experienced that before, right? And so how do we open up to that?
Do you have any other questions you want to ask?
No, this was like the way you. It's so amazing to meet you, especially after having read your book, and really to sit down and to get to know you better, because I can see like your book is so authentic in the way that it's written, in the way that you speak, and even, you know, in this conversation that we're having now. And I think that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah. Because it's hard. It's hard to put yourself out there. It's hard to be vulnerable. And it's like, you know, it's these are the things that both of us, I think, are really working hard on this year.
Yeah. I actually do have a question, though. Have you ever had somebody come to you for, well, I have two questions. Do people seek you out specifically sometimes for Reiki? And then have you ever had anyone that you have been doing Reiki work with and had them sort of have a challenging time being receptive to sort of opening up to the experience of Reiki?
Yeah, absolutely.
And do you switch modalities in that point?
The way that I work is, it's a weaving together, like I said, of all these different modalities, right? And Reiki being one of the primary modalities. And when somebody comes to me and wants to do work with me, and we sit down and we start a session, and there's that initial resistance, it's not so much about the modality that I use as it is, how do we soften to that resistance and be in relationship to that resistance, not confronting it like, why are you so like shut down, but rather like, okay, there's something here that needs to be protected within you, or something in your energy field that's being like, you know what, this is tender, or this is private, or this is, I don't know if I want to share this yet. And so how do I work around that? Like the Reiki as a modality is a really gentle energy, and it's a really forgiving energy, and it's a really, sometimes it feels almost like really mothering, right? And so especially for those of us who may not have experienced warm mothering or a sense of comfort in that, the Reiki can come in, and especially in those places that are scared or the places that are really protected, can create a different relationship. And sometimes that will soften within one session, and sometimes it takes 3 or 4, and sometimes it takes more. The resistance itself doesn't mean the Reiki can't work. It just means it's illuminating a place where we are protected or we have been deeply, deeply wounded. And so the Reiki's like, okay, so let's just sit with you. I'm just going to sit with you in that resistance, or I'm going to sit with you in that pain or in that place of tenderness, and let's just see what happens. And so that's also like how I work, is that I don't push. We do deep work, yes, and there are places where we're like, okay, we're going to be gentle right here, but we're going to work on this other stuff, right? And we're building trust and building relationship through the work that I do. And so on a structural basis, like most of my work is ongoing work. So I work with people once or twice a month, and we just keep, it's this ongoing work, it's cumulative, and it's not just, again, because like what we were talking about earlier, it's not just here, let's just soothe in this moment, but it's really about change and transformation, and that takes time to do that level of healing work or that form of healing. So people who come to me, we have the gift of being able to sit together on a regular basis and do that work together. So whether it's in person or for folks who don't live in LA, I work over Zoom. And so we do video work, is that we're able to not just build a relationship as people, but we're able to build a relationship as energetic beings and energetic conduits, right? And so the Reiki works in that way. Yeah.
If you have a session over Zoom, do you do Reiki through the computer?
Yeah. Yeah, you can do distance. Reiki over time and space.
You just learn that.
Yeah.
I was sending Reiki to my prior selves.
Yeah, so we can go past, through time and space. We can go in the past. We can do it to our future selves. We can, because it's not limited to our concept of time and space.
Quantum physics.
Exactly.
I've been reading up. I'm like obsessed with this because it's just, it really is. It was something that my parents are both work in the emergency room in, so my family is very scientific forward thinking. Right. Let's put it that way. That wasn't a good term, but if you you see where I'm going here. But so when I first started, I was like, I don't know if I believe in this, but it was life-changing, just even that one experience that I had, and I could see, and now we're starting to realize, like, it is interconnected with everything else, and it's there whether you acknowledge it or not. So, in particular, I was just like, I have to know everything about energy. I have to know what happened.
Yeah.
When people see colors during a Reiki session, what does that mean? Because that seems to be a very common experience.
I mean, I think that if you see colors during a Reiki session, it means that your intuitive body interprets energy as colors. That means that that's how you physically and intuitively interpret energy. Because not everybody sees colors.
Yeah. My colors are very weak, I would say. It's
I don't really see colors.
Yeah.
So one of the things I could talk about, I think, in terms of impact that I've seen over the years working with clients, one of the things is that in general with folks is just this heightened confidence of like regaining or reclaiming or even just claiming a sense of confidence within their own bodies and their own trust of their emotional body, and trusting what is coming through, what they understand, what they feel, what they experience. And that to me is really powerful. So I'm seeing that. I also see, like, in the folks I work with, more courage to walk their path and to take those leaps of faith before them. And whether or not they identify as spiritual or religious or connected to a spiritual practice, but taking a leap of faith is something that is so terrifying, but is also what gets us into that magic and the mystery of what is possible, right? And gets us out of that sense of everything's not possible, nothing's possible, right? And into this place of complete spaciousness. And so seeing people really being able to tap into more courage within their own bodies and trusting themselves, like, that's huge. And I think everyone I work through is just a constant growth in self-trust. And so we make better decisions, right? We feel more supported in the work that we do and just existing in our own bodies. And the trusting our own physical bodies in a different way means that we have different relationships when it comes to food, when it comes to our needs, when it comes to articulating our needs, when it comes to emotions. And that creates change, not just for ourselves, but for the spaces that we inhabit. And I think the other thing I would add that I've seen as a direct impact, both within my own body and my life, having received energy work for years, and that being actually the modality that really helped me heal and recover fully from bulimia, is that seeing that there's this sweeter relationship with our own trauma and our own wounds. And that Reiki doesn't take away your trauma. It doesn't erase the pain. What it does is helps us be in a sweeter relationship with it. And so that we're not constantly battling it and it's not taking us out on a daily basis. If we can find that space of cohabitating or coexisting, not necessarily in harmony, but in understanding and sweetness and softness with our trauma and our wounds, then life gets a little easier and life gets a little more possible. Change becomes possible, right? And our dreams become more possible. And finding that love that we all seek and long for becomes more possible, right? Whether it's from ourselves or from others. And so that's something I see regularly with the people I work with, is that moving into more tenderness around our own wounds. And I see that within myself, that I have a lot more compassion for those places within me that have been really, really hurt and have hurt others, because that's what wounds do. And so having that compassion creates, again, that possibility for transformation.
It sounds like it's a lot of self-acceptance. Accepting yourself for, like, literally everything that you are and has happened to you, and acknowledging it and the acknowledgement I'm learning is huge, which again, it's a new lesson for me. But yeah, it's a game changer, I feel like. If women want to come and find you and work with you, men too, but this is more, I guess, women focused. Where can they find you?
Yes. So I do work with folks of all genders across the spectrum. So there's a couple of ways that you can find out more. So I have 2 websites, bluejaguarlove.com, and that's kind of like the overarching work of my healing practice, which is Blue Jaguar Healing Arts, and then releasebulimia.com. And that's the project specifically geared towards supporting folks around recovery and towards liberation in eating disorder work and eating disorder recovery. So bluejaguarlove.com and releasebulimia.com. And then on Instagram, my business account is at releasebulimia.
Awesome.
Yeah, you can find me there.
Yeah, we'll make sure the links are in the show notes too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
And I do free consults.
Yay!
Yeah, and I teach Reiki.
I know. Speaking of which, I need to hit you up to keep my practice going.
Yeah, I do apprenticeships, and it's all about that. It's all relationship building. But the other thing I would say is that my work is not just about creating spaces for healing. I see my work as community building. And so I'm building a relationship with you as you're building a relationship with me, because ultimately that's how we're both going to be able to tap into our resilience and our survival, is we need each other. And so by doing this work, we're building those relationships and those bridges and those bonds that are going to sustain us all moving forward.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for asking me to be here.
If you'd like to find Syd and learn more about Blue Jaguar Healing Arts and her Release Bulimia project, you can find her at bluejaguarhealingarts.com and releasebulimia.com. She's also on Instagram at bluejaguarlove and at releasebulimia.
Thanks for listening, and if you guys like the show, please take some time and review and rate us. We really appreciate it, and it helps us to continue doing this for the betterment of all of us. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Music provided by Chromatics, courtesy of the Italians Do It Better record label.